Good morning, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome to this week's Weekly Energy Boost. My name is Elisheva, and I'm here this lovely Monday morning with David. And we are here in this week's episode talking about the new moon of Scorpio and how using this new moon, which comes up this week, and we'll talk about it in a minute, as well as any new moon, can be an integral part of your spiritual practice, what the Kabbalists have been teaching about it for millennia, and what it means practically to be connected to the cycles of the moon, and why it seems like almost in every spiritual practice there is a moon-centric ritual or something, and there's got to be more to it than meets the eye. Weekly Energy Boost in general is a spiritual, 7-day spiritual energy forecast where David and I, and sometimes our guests, share with our listeners the most practical and powerful wisdom and tools to navigate the coming 7 days, which translates into powerful life lessons that you can use anytime. And we're dealing this week with the energies of both the new moon of Scorpio. Today is the eve of the new moon, and then Tuesday and Wednesday are the new moons, and we'll talk about what that means as well. But we also have the energy of the great deluge, the flood. It's a really interesting story about imbalanced energy that is affecting us this week. We want to talk about how to balance our energy, even how the new moon can be a part of your balancing energy practice. Maybe energy is a bit woo-woo of a word for some people, but really what we understand and what we connect to when we say the word energy is more of a sense, right? Or a vibration or a frequency, even a mood, right? If you take the emotional charge out of a mood, a good mood, a bad mood, some people have positive vibes, some people have negative vibes. Sometimes you walk into a room where you get a weird feeling. Sometimes you walk into a place and you feel so good and you don't even know why. So we're talking about being in charge of our energy versus being affected and influenced by external forces. So with that vast and wide-arching introduction, David, where do you want to begin?
I think first we will address the whole idea of the energy of the moon, new moon, full moon. And because Kabbalah does explain that it's not that our solar system is emitting certain types of energy as if that is the source. Whatever we see astrologically is merely the shadow or reflection of what's happening in the upper worlds from an energy source. And so the reason why we like to examine astrology and learn about it and follow the cycles of the moon, because we know that even the waves of the ocean and the tide and the female menstrual cycle, all of this is according to some kind of energy that's being emitted from the cosmos.
The planets compel, they do not impel.
That's right. And they're not the source. So I think sometimes people get wrapped up into this whole idea that we're like worshiping these planets in some way because they're emitting or creating a new energy, and that's not the truth. There's energy in the physical world. If there's energy that is coming gravitationally from these planets, all of this has a spiritual source.
Can I share with you? I learned something from you many years ago, and I might muck it up. So if you remember what it is and want to correct me, please jump in.
Please.
But I listened to David talking to a student or giving a lecture. I don't even remember, but I was listening to you talk one day, and you were saying that, if you can imagine that the creator is like the CEO of the company. You know where I'm going with this? No?
I think
so. Let's say you're applying for a job at a company, right? You don't get to go to the CEO and have a cup of coffee with him. Even if you finally get a job at the company, you really don't interact with the CEO on a daily basis, but it's the team managers that you're going to go to. So what do the team managers do? They're the ones who tell you what you need to be working on. They're the ones who are in charge of, production and management and maintenance and all that stuff. So that's what the planets are. The planets are the ones that are guiding us. What do you need to work on now? And to me, that really speaks to what we talk about every week here is if you're paying attention to the calendar, your spiritual work is always going to be guided. You're always going to have a focus. You're always going to be, there's even this idea that even if you don't know the energy of the week by what you're presented with in your daily life, you know what the energy of the week is. So sometimes you get a phone call from a student, they're like, oh my God, what's going on? It's so intense right now. And the answer is, this is an intense week and here's why. Rather than you're a victim of it, you're really experiencing it. We're experiencing it as a collective because that's where the opportunity and the, if you can look at it like a window that opens and closes, there's a window right now that's open for us to approach, which we'll get into in a second, that once it closes, it'll just be harder to get to that. It's not impossible, but it's harder. So we want to take advantage of the window that's opening, which is going to present us with certain gifts and certain challenges. And when we use those gifts and those challenges, we'll always be focused on the right quote unquote thing.
And why the new moon is powerful? Because when you look at the new moon up in the sky, what you see is no moon. So a new moon is no moon. As opposed
a blank canvas.
You see a blank canvas. While on the 15th of that lunar month, you have a full moon. So it's midway through the month where the moon is full. So spiritually speaking, the vessel is filled with light. That's why it's a very positive time. But the new moon, which is no moon at all to the visible eye, is also a very positive time. And what is the energy that's available? And there is a big secret here, and it correlates to what we go through in our lives. What is the most powerful time in our own lives? It's when nothing is happening. We are all so obsessed with results, something happening, something that I've been working towards manifesting. We're so obsessed with feeling good, feeling that I'm moving forward. All of this stuff that we give credence and power to is actually what's weakening us. The greatest times of your life where you reveal the most energy and you're actually creating something new in your life, a new destiny, a new level of fulfillment, a new vessel, is when you are exerting effort and energy, whatever that may be, that you've learned you need to do, and you're not seeing the result. You're not seeing the moon, which is the vessel. You're not seeing the vessel being built. And it's such a paradox because we're all so addicted to feedback, and we need that to continue, that the body starts to wane in energy, and the body starts to resist when it doesn't see what it's getting from the work. The reason why, for example, the business owner has more energy to work on the business than the worker is because he sees what he's getting from it. So he's able to, or she's able to work 22 hours a day and sacrifice and still have a lot of energy and not feel burned out. The worker, especially when they don't see what they're going to get, what's in it for them besides the paycheck, so it's less. You start getting tired faster because you don't see what's coming for me. However, we know that when the employee works like the owner, which is, this is like even though you don't see how you're going to get what you want, you don't have the equity, you don't have the bonus structure, whatever, but you say, I'm going to invest as if I'm the owner, even though I don't know what I'm going to get. I don't see it. I don't see the moon. This is always the person who gets promoted first. This is always the person who's the most successful. This is always the person who receives even the divine inspiration of how to start their own business. Because you have to be that person. We're always waiting for something to happen for us to be who we need to be. And this is a disease. This is a plague of our time, which is, I need something to happen to me or for me before I can decide to rise to my destiny. Because I need stability. I need to know that it's going to work. I need to know that I'm meant to do it. I want to avoid failure at all costs.
I need a sign.
I need a sign. Signs are the worst. Because you look at, why is the new moon so powerful? There's no sign. You don't see anything.
Right. Oh, I love that.
And when you see, and the Kabbalists, Rav Ashlag, who was our generation, a great Kabbalist, early 1900s, he would talk about when you see something, it's a bad sign. When you see a sign, it's a bad sign. Because it means you're not being led by the Creator, you're being led by your own need for signs. So you're not getting the true power of the guidance. The highest level of guidance is no guidance at all. It's a very deep concept. It's very hard to accept that. But if right now in your life you're going through something where you do not see how it's going to work out, you're actually in the most elevated state of consciousness, and it means you are going to be the most successful.
To me, as one of the parallels, I'll use the word parallel, one of the parallels that the Kabbalists give to the moon is the female aspect. And going to the other parallels, that like the moon represents humanity, the moon represents the feminine aspect within us all. It's the vessel, like you said, in an empty vessel. It's hard to detect its potential. When it comes to how to work with that energy, and I think it's relevant to bring in the feminine thing, because the feminine energy is about manifestation. How can we use the monthly cycle to maximize our effort and our energy?
I'm not following the question.
So let's say if you were a farmer, and here again I go with
going back to
the universal farming
some
metaphors.
stuff you didn't correct in your past life on the farm.
I was definitely okay. Well, let's not make it.
Let's say you have 2 donkeys.
No, no donkeys. So there is a right time to plant seeds, a right time to, you want to use, you know what, let's be more modern for David. David is uncomfortable because he doesn't like gardening.
Let's say you're a blacksmith.
Okay. Let's say you are a surfer. Are you better with that metaphor? David likes the beach. Let's say you're a surfer. You know that if you want to have a gnarly ride, dude, you're not going to go out at low tide. Or maybe it's the other way around because I don't surf. But there is a science to knowing when is the best time to get on your board and get into the ocean.
Sure.
How does that apply? And again, as you mentioned, it has to do with the moon. The moon is what's determining the tides. So how do I use the monthly movement of energy to maximize my own time? And I can tell you the very general answer I would give, but I think that you have a lot more to say about this than I do. Is, when the moon is waxing, when it is building up the light, right? The first 2 weeks of the Kabbalistic month. And by the way, we're not talking about January 1st to January 15th. We're talking about the Kabbalistic months, which run on a lunisolar cycle. So it's 29 to 30 days every month. When in those first 2 weeks, the energy is building.
That's right.
So what that means is that is the time of investing of, I have certain students that I'm on text with constantly. What's the best day? What's the energy like this week? What's the most positive day of the week? And inevitably, the first 2 weeks of every month, with one exception, is always going to be more packed with positive days. And it's going to be increasing in energy as we get to the full moon. So that's a better time if you have big meetings, big plans, contract signings, closing deals. It's always better as a general rule, right? There's definitely specifics we could get into, but the first half of the month is always going to be more positive. The second half of the month is as the moon is waning, the energy and the momentum is diminishing. So if you look at yourself, and it might be interesting if you're a journaler or you like to keep track of things, is to watch your energy as it ebbs and flows over the course of a month. I don't want to promise anybody, but I can tell you that in the 4th week of the month, which is right, today is the last day of the Kabbalistic month of Libra, which it's the 29th of the month. So energetically, it's the last day of Libra energy, but the Libra energy is exhausted. It's depleted. The gas tank is empty. And there's actually a beautiful teaching the Kabbalists bring down about how every month, this would be the most negative day of the month. This, because of the light is so scarce in this day, it would be the most negative day of the month. But because of the magnanimosity of the universe, so all of the souls who've corrected themselves completely, meaning they've revealed the complete potential of their soul. They've corrected all of their selfishness. They've revealed all of the goodness that they can while in the physical body. Those souls, we call them righteous souls. They go and they wait for the rest of us to get it together, and they give us gentle nudges from above. All of those souls come down to our plane to support us on that day. So instead of being one of the most negative days of the month, it becomes one of the most positive days of the month. So the watching the ebbs and flows of the energy, that's what I'm saying, watching it, you can see, you don't need a Kabbalistic calendar in your phone. You can actually see it in the moon. You know where the energy is flowing, and you can make your plans accordingly. There's obviously times where the second half of the month has very powerful days in it, and that's why working with a Kabbalah teacher to give you that kind of guidance also helps. But in a typical month, you'll find that the first 2 weeks are much more powerful, and the second 2 weeks are less.
I will make a comment on that. So even though there's a very specific energy each day, and the month is broken up exactly as Elisheva said, I will also tell you that I've seen students of Kabbalah, or people who are just starting to learn about this, get too consumed with positive day, negative day. Should I do this? Should I do that? It's kind of like when somebody asks me, well, I want to buy my first home. When should I buy my first home? Should I wait for the market to do this? Should I wait for the market to do that? And you know the number one response I got to this before I bought my first home? Number one response I got was, when you're ready to buy it, that's when you should buy it. Because if you're trying to time the market and find the perfect time, it's about your life. It's about your comfort. It's not an investment. Now, I'm not saying that's one size fits all.
Okay, but David, if you want to buy an apartment,
yes,
or a house,
yes,
and it's the 3 negative weeks in the summer,
with the exception of some extreme scenarios of marriage, buying something big.
It needs to be said, because a lot of people.
I think someone's like, all right, I want to create a product and bring it out to the market. So I'm going to wait 2.5 weeks to go Google it, or something like that. Forget about all that nonsense.
No, that kind of minutia is not necessary. We're talking about fundamental moves.
Yes, and I would even say sometimes it's just about going out there and doing it, not overthinking. Because sometimes when you're overthinking it, you're causing more negativity than the benefit of finding the positive or negative. So I want to make sure to balance it out, because a lot of what happens in the wisdom of Kabbalah, and really any spiritual wisdom, is you start to learn so many rules. And what happens is, while those rules do help create a structure for you, and you become more spiritual and you become a better human being and you saw miracles and whatnot, there's always some kind of peel that comes with that fruit, that if you don't learn how to throw that peel away and be flexible, you become very dogmatic, you become more judgmental, and you become hard on yourself. And then you yearn for the days where you actually felt more free. And I'm talking to a lot of people who have been on any spiritual path for a long period of time. That's the negative side of anything that has great light and great energy, is the dogmatic approach we take upon ourselves. It's got to be this way. It's got to be. I've seen people lose their marriage. I've seen people really destroy their lives because they're trying to follow the rules. But the rules, and I learned this, when someone's a beginner with learning the rules, they're usually more strict than someone who's more advanced and understands more and understands the spirit of the rules, the spirit of the structure. So there's a spirit behind the structure of everything that we're learning. It's kind of like a person who's a lawyer for like 1 year versus a lawyer or a judge for 60 years. Their experience, their understanding, what they've seen, and the cultures they've been through, the generations they've been through, help them understand how to make decisions, not just by reading a book, but the context of everything. So I did want to mention that, because I think a lot of our devoted followers sometimes get too hard on themselves, and they make up rules. You start making up your own rules. And this is also what I've learned. spent like a little bit of time personally with Michael Berg, and I see some of the stuff he does. And I'm like, well, why did you do that? Why did you do that? He's like,
Michael Berg is the director of the Kabbalah Centre.
Yeah, so he's the one. He's the one that you would say, okay, this guy's following more rules than anybody, and he is. But I'm also watching, he's enjoying himself, and he's not. And I realize certain things that I made up, even I made up based on I don't even know what. And he's like, well, why are you doing that? I'm like, I don't know. I thought that's what we're supposed to do. And then when you hear the word "supposed to," it's all out the window. So I'm addressing this. Hopefully, it's helpful. At the end of the day, if it's not making you happy, or it's making you feel suppressed, or it's making other people sad, or it's making your spouse sad, or making your kids sad, you probably need to look into it. You're probably not doing it right. Sorry, did I?
No, you did not derail the episode. I was just thinking about how in every other episode we talk about how it's okay to be uncomfortable, and it's okay. You need to have what's the word? Frustration tolerance and stuff like that.
Right. You did ask me to say something that's slightly...
I never know what I'm going to get when it comes to David. No, I do want to make sure before the episode ends that we focus specifically on this week and this week's energy. So again, if you're listening on Monday, most of our listeners listen on Monday and Tuesday, statistically speaking. So if you're listening on Monday and Tuesday, Monday is the eve of the new moon. It's the 29th of the month of Libra. Tuesday is the 30th of the month of Libra, which when Kabbalistic months, this is really like scientific now, but when Kabbalistic months have 30 days, the 30th day is called the first day of the new moon, and the first day of the next month, even though it's the first day of the next month, it's actually the second day of the new moon, which I love because to me, the whole concept of the moon cycles is about second chances. We just had this whole month of Libra where we were setting up the new year for ourselves and downloading all the energy and creating the script for the coming. We have all these ways that we blast this energy in the month of Libra, and yet here comes the new moon of Scorpio, which tells us if you didn't do everything you were supposed to do, if you didn't maximize your potential in the month of Libra, you have another chance to plant a new seed, and we get the opportunity to plant new seeds every month. So then why do we need the new moon of Libra is really the birth of humanity. We recharge our batteries. We download a new movie for the year. But then all along, there's so many moments throughout the year where we get I don't know if you could call it a do-over, but it's like another chance and another chance. We have this seed that we planted, and here comes the new moon of Scorpio to give us another opportunity to inject more energy into that seed and more blessings and more protection and more happiness and more health and all of the things that we want. Every other episode of the weekly energy boost that has fallen in the week of a new moon, probably, I'm sure we've missed it a couple times, but we usually talk about how in that 24 to 48 hour window, we want to be our best selves, set goals, be super mindful, because what we're doing is we're setting the tempo for the coming month. We are creating a mold, and it's I think it's beautiful that we're doing this in the month of Scorpio, because Scorpio is ruled by the planet Mars, which is the planet of war, to put it nicely, the god of war, the planet of conflict, negotiation, and it can be a very conflicted, no, that's not the right way to say it. It can be a very, why have I disconnected my thesaurus? The month, people, let's not blame the month. People in the month of Scorpio can be very divisive, very argumentative, very controlling, very on edge. And so it's even more important that in this time frame of the new moon, that we bring as much positive energy, practices that will enhance our positive mindset, do things for ourselves that will help us be more of our best selves. What's interesting is that it is the new moon of Scorpio, which is actually Wednesday, is the most positive day of the year that is not a holiday. I don't know if you know that, David. It is the most positive day of the year that is not a holiday. I did
not know that.
There you go. I found something that David Guillaume didn't know.
I did not know that.
So what do you tell your students to do on the new moon? Nothing?
You know what I tell them? I tell them every day is the new moon. That's how I want you to act. That's what I tell them.
I love that. I doubt you actually tell them that, but I really
do.
love
I
that.
say every day is the new moon. Every day is Rosh Hashanah. Because I see people, you know what? Every day is 6 months before your wedding. So go get in shape and be nice to your spouse. Because that's when you're your best.
Wow.
Yeah. Every day.
I want to be your student.
Yeah. Yeah, it's spicy.
It's spicy.
It gets spicy. That's just reactive to wait for the new moon to be a good person or be proactive. That's the highest level of consciousness. Every day, you got to get this person to choose to marry you. What are you going to do? How are you going to do that? That's right. That's right.
Speechless.
So what's even the point of this whole podcast?
You're
anyways, right.
Stop listening now.
There was no point. Everything we just said.
Go back to
delete
last
it.
week. Well, by the same token.
But what you're saying is important too. You need to have both. You need to have it means nothing and it means everything. So.
Well, you don't want to take it to the extreme where you're not ever setting any goals and you're just taking every minute as it comes. You have to have a target. You have to have a vision. And that's what I think is so beautiful about the cycle of the moon, is that you have your like you said, if the new moon is a blank slate, what's the vision you're creating? What is it that you'd like to do with the energy that's about to fill that vessel?
That's right.
And so this week, again, Wednesday is the new moon, the first day of the month of Scorpio. We're entering this time that could be that people are volatile. I'm not talking about people who are on a spiritual journey or people who are mindful. This is the flood, like the whole Noah's Ark story, according to Kabbalah, happened on the 17th day of the month of Scorpio, which is not yet, obviously, it's in 19 days. But the idea that there can be such an intense revelation of energy. And the cool thing about that story, if you're a Kabbalah buff, right, the whole, take it literally or metaphorically, it's up to you. The humanity was so negative that the creator basically said, I'm going to wipe you out and start new, start fresh. So how did that happen? Through water. Water is the energy of mercy, actually. Water is the closest thing in the physical reality to the light itself, to the light force of the creator. So it was like the planet was washed, cleansed of its negativity, but to me, it's that the Rav used to use the word unbridled energy. It's like there's no insulation. It's just a bombardment. And it's important for us in this month that we'll be especially careful about how we go off, how we go off on people, how we go off on ourselves. Scorpions tend to be very black and white about things. It's either amazing or it's the end of the world. And there you go, right? The flood version of the end of the world. But it's important for us as we go into this month being naive, being innocent, you will see people behaving badly, saying terrible things. And the test this month is really not to banish those people to, the depths of hell with our thoughts and our words and our actions. People do a lot of damage in this month by allowing themselves to be so deeply influenced by that black or white energy. You did something wrong, we're done. That's the Scorpio tendency, right? A scorpion, the animal itself, the insect, if it perceives danger, it will kill its young and itself, right? What other creature does that sort of self-destruct? And not only self-destruct, but destroying their young, it's also another level of destruction. So we want to be mindful of our destructive tendencies, of how we self-destruct when we're upset, when we're frustrated, when we have an argument with somebody, that we call it quits or we throw in the towel. We give that black or white perspective all the power that it doesn't deserve. And so in this month, especially and specifically, we want to be mindful of that. In this week, as we're building up toward, the energy is increasing toward the full moon. I'm sorry, I lost the word full. As we get toward the full moon, noticing that the intensity of the energy is increasing. And then as we write out those last 2 weeks of the month, watching how we need more. And I'm telling you this, David we're both right. Every day is the new moon. And we also need to be mindful of the influence of the energy around us, not so that we can blame it, right? You're not behaving that way because you're a Scorpio, but because you're a Scorpio, you need to be especially mindful of not falling into those kind of traps. That's why we study Kabbalistic astrology, not so that we can be victims of the constellations and the planets, but so that we can rise above them. And that to me is what David's main message was. I know he likes to be very provocative, but what he was really saying is, yes, we have this roadmap to follow, but in certain cases, you don't want to follow the roadmap. You need to pave your own road, and there's support and tools and wisdom for that as well. So with that said, good luck to us all, Scorpio and Scorpion friends and family alike. The Weekly Energy Boost is available on all podcast platforms, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. You can find all of the things that we think are important and more on our website, weeklyenergyboost.com. We also want to invite you to go to weeklyenergyboost.com/donate and support Weekly Energy Boost to reach more listeners, to produce even more fabulous content, and to have an even more meaningful mark on humanity at large. We want to hear from you. So if you want to reach out and let us know your comments, thoughts, questions, even suggest guests, you can do that by emailing us at energyboost@kabbalah.com. And please continue to like, rate, review, and share the episode. While the energy of the month of Scorpio only lasts 4 weeks, the energy of the new moon, the opportunity of the new moon comes every 30 days. And the same way that the farmers paid attention to the cycles of the moon and the seasons, we too can plant more fruitful seeds by being more mindful of the way that the energy of the universe can support us or sometimes deter us. Sometimes it's better for us to leave the land, lay fallow, and rest. And it's better to use our energy in different ways in those times other than planting seeds. So with that said, have a fabulous week, and we'll see you next time on the Weekly Energy Boost.